All right, so the men that are on our panel, Brother Richard from Baltimore Brothers, some of our other brothers that'll be joining us on our men's panel. All right. Brother Richard from the Baltimore Brothers. Brother Omo as well. No problem, no problem. Excellent, excellent. Have we exceeded expectations, brother? Have we exceeded expectations? You on the panel, brother? Okay, wonderful. Excellent, come on. Wonderful. So we've been here. We started off, again, Dr. Tommy Curry, our keynote speaker, our co-executive director, Zakiya Sankara-Jabar, put this convening together specifically as an emergency convening. Sister Tiffany Kelley said the house is burning down, so we didn't have time to ask the fire department for water. So as we go through this journey in Maryland, in D.C., in Virginia, in New Orleans, in Chicago, across the nation, all of our boys, our black men or boys, are suffering, encountering great challenges, encountering racism, encountering all manner of threats. Dr. Smith explained very well in that vivid description of just simply taking a co-worker home and how that could possibly cost you your life. Did we follow that? Did we follow that? So we're just going to transition into a couple of questions as our fathers on this panel are going to express some of the feedback that they have from listening to Dr. Curry, listening to Dr. Auguste, and listening to Dr. Smith. So I'm going to start with you, Brother Richard. Our Brother Richard is here, representing our brothers from Baltimore Brothers, who has been diligently taking in this information and been giving me some feedback on the backside. So just share with us, brothers, anything that stuck out to you that was most important, anything that you would like to share based on what you heard today.
Hey, everybody. Man, it's a blessing to be here. One thing that stuck out to me was the youth. You know, it's a blessing to see the youth on this side rather than on the other side, because they can be anywhere else. So one of the things that stuck out was how the transition, how their life is changing at an early age, because they could be anywhere. So that's one of the things that really stuck out to me, because when I was that age, I couldn't even imagine to even think about anything that's positive. And you got the youth that's up here demonstrating positive, you know, so we got to continue to pour into our youth. That's the only way we're going to bring upon a change, if we plug into the youth, because the youth is our future.
Thank you, Brother Richard.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Frederick. I heard everything that was said today. I took it in and I absorbed it. What was that? Oh, yes. Sorry about that. James Frederick. I've been a resident of Montgomery County for over 10 years, sort of a native here, in and out. But yes, sorry, kind of drawing a little blank here. My experience in Montgomery County with racial injustice, plenty of experiences. I'm sort of on the bench as long as policing. I've had pulled over multiple times by police officers. One just happened a few months ago. I got pulled over for a simple traffic stop, and for whatever reason, 2 more police officers came out of nowhere and just sat on the side of me. I had rolled down my window and I asked them why they were standing there, and they just said, "We just had to see in your car." After the initial officer already came up, license, registration, insurance, and gave them my identification, and yeah. Yes, but that's it for me right now. Sorry about that. I'm gonna pass it along.
Hey, it's me again, Ahmad Mola. A lot spoke out to me earlier. Mainly being a parent myself, I'm trying to figure out a way to break that generational curse. Because my father, having an African father, like if I breathe funny, I'm getting popped. And I tend to subconsciously do that to my daughters, not beat them, but more so the aspect of saying, you know, do as I say. I'm not gonna tell you why, just do it. And I have to be a better parent. It made me realize that I have to start saying the why. Because if I told my father why, it would be a why, you know, a different type of why. So I feel like I'm getting to a different, a form of a paradigm shift.
Thank you. A very good day to everybody. My name is Gibson Christopher Paul Holman. I'm a parent. I reside in this wonderful, sometimes not so wonderful county of Montgomery County. I came here at the invitation of my beloved sister Tiffany. I find myself in the midst of a very complex transition. I come from a country and from a community which had its own complexities in Africa. I then ended up as a refugee, and I ended up here. But I'm not here to talk so much about me. That's just a bit of my background. The volume of information that was disseminated here today was at a caliber and at a level that was meant to stimulate the innermost part of the core of your being. I had a choice to make this morning. Do I sit online and observe, or do I do the practical thing? And the most sensible thing to me was to come into this forum, to participate, and to receive the impartation. What you scholars and life-dedicated members of our society have done is you've managed to take from the complexity of this nation and of the nations of the world a mindset that needs to be captured by this audience. Why do I say it needs to be captured? The reason I say that is because these are core truths. But truth can be a problem if it's not correctly applied. So we weren't just given information. We were given solutions as to how we need to stand up and make ourselves counted as a people. As a community, we are not a social write-off. And today, I had a collision with my destiny. It is not simple spending 16 years in exile and not knowing where you're going to. You're then sent to the land of quote-unquote milk and honey. And when you get there, you find there ain't no raspberries. The bees don't even exist because they've killed them off. The milk, well, there ain't no more cows because everything is artificially created. The grass is not green because it's artificial turf. But I come here and I meet part of my family, from my ancestry, from my motherland. And I watch and I observe how they struggle. I went through a divorce proceeding as a small illustration. And today, through the confines of the magnitude of information that was fed to us, I got to understand what happened through my divorce. I got to understand what my transition was through the court process as a victim, not one being the one advocating and creating a victim. I know what it's like, as you correctly said, Dr. Smith, okay? To be a black man amongst a white society who a police officer is responsible for writing a report, but fabricates it against you. Just recently, I had that experience right in Montgomery County. I went to file an incident report. The officer deliberately misquoted, deliberately to not go ahead and file the correct information. I had to pay for that report. Right now, for them to do an amendment, I'm having to pay for it again, and they're further delaying the process by another 4 weeks. But what you gentlemen have so carefully explained to us is a formula to be able to build our society, to become a force to be reckoned with, and for us to become an identity that nobody can challenge. It's a pity we do not have sufficient time for them to fully download. I was watching Dr. Smith as he was winding up, and I could see him kind of like, it's like an athlete, knowing he's leading the pace, but he hasn't got enough time to finish it. There was so much he needed to. My question is, can we have another or a lot more of these settings and these forums? If we're going to begin, they say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. This journey that you've invited us onto as mentors in our society, as people who have taken the time to sacrifice. People don't understand something in our community. Education is a sacrifice. To get truth and to be able to reduce that truth to something that is palatable to lay people is a sacrifice. I know what it's like to sit and prepare a paper. He's got a million things he wants to say. And in the process of things, we only give him 20 minutes. I think that's a little bit of an injustice. But I'm going to end right here. And I want to say this much. To the organizers, thank you very much. To those of you who've traveled from far and wide, thank you for coming to give us these truths and for helping us to start a new journey. God bless you.
There we go. All right. Thank you so much, Brother Gibson. I ran out and I wasn't sure what was going on, so I'm sorry about that. We are missing one of our panelists. Maybe he had to run, but this panel is very unique. And I'm going to ask a question. I'd like you to raise your hand if this applies to you. How many of you up here are parenting as single fathers? I have never experienced anything like this until I got to this county. I have never met so many men who are parenting without the presence of a mother. I have never seen it. And it has led to me being, well, reestablishing what I know to be true about black men and fatherhood. They are the most hands-on fathers, the most affectionate fathers. But I've also learned about how our systems treat them. And it has led to me becoming very angry and frustrated that people refuse to see you as the caretakers you are. And in this case, because there is no one else, they don't have a choice. And I want to ask, what are the challenges that have been presented in how you are perceived, treated, and spoken to when all you're trying to do is care for your children. And I'll ask that you limit your answer, if you can, to 1 minute.
Yes, I can answer that. By the way, I don't know if I introduced myself. My name is Brother Richard. I'm with We Are Us, Thrive, NOI, meaning Nation of Islam. I'm just your brother, you know. So one of the things that, to answer her question, for its parenting, although my children are grown, every last one of them. So parenting never dies. It never dies. My youngest is 22. So it's like they still have to have the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding order enough to get through this society. We have to continue to pour off into them. You know, my sons did not grow up the way that I did. You know, and I embedded in them that if they go down the same road that I did, they might not even make it, because I went through a struggle, really a serious struggle. My first child I was 17 years old, and I kept making them. So I got 5 children now and 8 grandchildren. So I got to continue to be a parent, you know, and continue to teach them the ways of this world and show them things that what the likes and dislikes, the pros and cons. We have to continue to pour into the youth. We have to continue to pour into the youth. So if you got a niece, a nephew, anybody that need that assistance, if you can't do it, send them to somebody else that know how to do it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Again, parenting as a single parent, what challenges have presented in how you are perceived, treated, and spoken to? If you can limit your response to 1 minute.
My name is James Frederick. I have a 2-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter. My daughter has special needs. Some of the challenges I faced, I'll tell you a little sort of backstory. I got my children 2 years ago on an emergency basis. My son was 4 months old, my daughter was 4, and I had to put them, I didn't know what to do. I literally got a phone call saying, hey, CPS pretty much saying, hey, you come get your kids or we're gonna go get them. So there was really no manual for me to say or look to what to do. I just went and got them and I did it. But I was perceived as somebody who doesn't exist. It was impossible. What do you mean you're a single father? What do you mean you stepped up and got both of your kids? No, women do that. Men, they walk out the door. I experienced a lot of that. I just responded to the simple answers. Not all men are the same. You know, some of us going to step up, some of us are not. Some of them who are not around, it's not that they're bad. Some of them don't have the mental to handle those type of situations. People are there are parents out there, but as some of y'all know, everybody's not meant to be a parent. You know, but through the hardest situations, I gotta say, if it wasn't for that situation I went through, I wouldn't be the person who I am today. And right now, my daughter's advancing. She has special needs. She has hard time speaking. My son's 2. He's advanced. I had him in the infants and toddlers program, and they're both doing very well. Very well.
Wonderful.
Thank
Thank you, Brother James.
Having kids will humble you. I had my wake-up moment when I got into it with my children's mother. We had some disagreements, and I had her removed from my home. I didn't know how expensive daycare was, how expensive having a nanny, how expensive it is to even ask your neighbor, pay your neighbor to watch your kids. I ended up losing my place. I ended up being in a shelter with my daughters. Even still, I had to prove to myself, why don't you have custody, full custody of your kids? Where's the paperwork? I tried going to court. It's not as easy as a father going to court in Rockville to file for custody. They're gonna ask 1,000 questions about the mother as opposed to a mother. I don't wanna be sexist, it's just what I was told by a single mother who was mentoring me. She assumed that it was gonna be the same thing. You go to court, the father's not here, and the judge will stamp, you got full custody. I assumed it was gonna be the same thing. It was not the same thing at all. I had to, they wanted thousands from me. They wanted all types of publications, and I have to pay the sheriff's department. I didn't even know where she was at. That's your fault. That got nothing to do with me. That's what was being told to me. It's a lot of catch-22s. You can't get a job unless you have daycare. You can't get daycare unless you have a job. And I was forced to beg, ask, only to, you got it. You know, you'll be all right. You're a man. You know, you got it. I had babies. I don't know how to do little girls' hair. And my girl, they have Nigerian hair. So, yeah, it's a challenge. It's a healthy challenge.
Thank you.
I'll keep this short and sweet. I'll kiss it. The bottom line is this. I introduced the introduction of my discomfort that I had to go through. This has been my experience. As a single father, the police do not believe, especially of a handicapped girl, that you are capable of taking care of them. You go to Department of Human Services. Department of Human Services literally separated my daughter, who speaks a foreign sign language, and tried to communicate to them. In my heart, I laughed. I said, be the fool. Your intelligence is just showing, your lack of intelligence is just showing up. They sat us down. We had been in the street for about 7 months, sleeping in a car. I had to travel from gas station to gas station, out of town, truck stop to truck stop, play a game with my daughter to make her believe that this is just a transition, that somehow God going to get us through this. To crown it all, she has siblings. Her own siblings turned against her, let alone her mother. So we had this experience. Now you're trying to relay your situation to people who are what I call textbook oriented. There's no compassion in your system. Your system is designed to look at a black man. And when they hear Africa, oh boy, you're worse than a gorilla. You're worse than an ape. So for me, it doesn't make a difference whether I'm dealing with a black official or a white official. They are all brainwashed to think the same way. Why do I say they're brainwashed? The beauty of education is to give you the capability to be flexible in your thinking and your decision making. Here we don't. In South Africa, we call it a yes boss mentality or a yes sir mentality. All they will do is tell their superiors, yes sir. I went through a system where eventually, after spending a very cold winter's December, sleeping in my fort with my daughter, having begged them on the 22nd to say, look, we need to get my daughter and myself into some kind of housing. It's snowing. They said, we don't care. Here's a gift card. They took us in at 9 o'clock in the morning, released us at 12:15 in the evening. This is the Department of Human Services here in Montgomery County. Then went out, threw us in the street to try and find a shelter. There's not a shelter that's going to receive you at that time of the night. So we coasted through. Eventually, at sometime early January, I had sent an email to the head of DHHS, and I advised them how they violated not only my rights, but my daughter's rights. Then they started jumping around. But when they bring you into the system has a way of interrogating you, not questioning you. There's a difference between a questioning and an interrogation. I find that our systems here are designed almost as if I'm sitting in a communistic concentration camp and I'm being made to be scrutinized because I'm a man. You enter the judicial system and you try to present your case on behalf of your daughter who's been violated by her mother. You know what the judge told me? And this is a black lady. She told me to my face, I don't believe what you're telling me. But the record was there to prove it. All I'm trying to say as black men, there is nothing wrong with being an upright citizen. Do not allow the system to tear you down. I'm still fighting till today. Getting into housing, and I'm going to wind up with this, made me recognize that housing for black men, it's not going to happen that easy. You're going to have to struggle your way through sweat, snot, tears before they will get it to you. And my experience has been that there is a need for a shutdown of the current system, a readdressing of the current system to identify black men as not just being useless as fathers. We have the capability not only to make children, but we have the capacity to raise them.
Wow. Whew. That was a lot. I have to just once again give a shout out to my dad. My dad taught me how to plait hair, tie shoes, taught me how to wash dishes. I still don't wash dishes though. He don't know that. But my dad was very hands-on, and I can't imagine my early years without him. So it's really troubling to hear that at least 3 of you have dealt with being homeless, houseless, having to go through a shelter, and still fighting to keep your children intact. It's just really troubling to hear. But I do want to transition from talking about the problems, and this is something that came to me that I wanted to know, and I want to counter the narrative. What are the positives of your children having a man as the sole caretaker? What are some things you can think about that are positive to being a male caretaker of children? Because it's something we don't really see a lot in other parts of the country.
That's a beautiful question. One of the things that helped me was just being a great example, because we have to be we have to be what we talk about, because if we don't be what we talk about, speak about, listen to, then we doing us a self-service. You know, we not doing what we should be doing, because I know one of the things that helped me was, it's like in business. I have a cleaning business now, and I had my cleaning business since more than 10 years now. So by me I went to a trade school at the age of 19 years old, but I didn't utilize the trade until I came home from prison. You know, so we have to not only embed it into the youth, in our children, we have to show them the way to go, you know, by demonstration. You know, so when I came home from prison, I was 35 years old. And I knew I had to do something before I hit the streets. You know, so one of the things that I utilized was I remember what I did when I was 19 years old. So I started the journey of floor tech in prison. I did like 2 years of floor tech. You know, I read a lot. I read a lot of books. So test. Yes. I read a lot of books on how to really, it's just enlightened me on what I did in the trade school. So I brought that out in the street, and I utilized it, you know, and I didn't turn away from that, and it's been 15 years already, you know. So now I'm looking to build a floor tech school for the youth now. So we have to give back to the youth in order enough to make a change.
James, what are the positives about you being a sole caretaker to these children?
Organization, safety, security, structure, and discipline. Well, I didn't realize how attractive I was to some females being a single father. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Still experiencing that now. But I couldn't imagine where my kids would be at right now if they weren't with me. I am looked at, I'm still going through a little custody thing right now, of courts with the mother, but the courts are in my favor. Just, I've had my children for the last 2 years, so they seen that I'm able to take care of 2 kids. So as of right now, as we speak, I have full sole legal custody of both my children. So, thank you, yeah. I do get recognized for that. I do get recognized in courts and social media, all over. It's a good thing. It makes me feel good, actually. I know that I'm doing something right myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Omar, what are the positives about being the sole caretaker?
So earlier I said having kids will humble you. When you get humbled, you either become bitter or you grow. And I chose to grow. And with growing, I got into I got actually out of my comfort zone, my bubble, and started reaching out to people. And in doing so, in the process, I found myself mentoring other young adults, young single fathers. And I actually had them reaching out to me. And I'm like, well, what? I heard that, you know, you've been through this, you've been through that, and I'm somewhat going through this. And I'm like, man, I'm only 38. I don't know nothing. But I soon to step up into my leadership. And having kids will just full time will just, it's a sense of personal gratitude.
Thank you.
That's a very loaded question. The reality is that as men, people say women struggle for 9 months. I say men carry the seed that produces the fetus that the mother will carry only for 9 months, but they have it from the time they have conceived in their mother's wombs as men until the day they find the female that will become the incubator to produce their child. Why am I saying that? I said that so I might say this. What is invested inside of us as men is the inert ability to pass on the strength, to pass on the generational fortitude, to pass on the ability to know that all things are possible if you will not give up. What am I teaching my daughter? Thank you so much for the presentation on the attempt to dehumanize the African mind and society. The first thing they did in Ohio was ran to a corner because of the disadvantages my daughter had. They tried to claim her mentally disturbed. And I sat down with the neuropsychologist and I asked her if she wants to work for me for the rest of my life. She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "This report is a farce, it is false, and quite frankly speaking, you are ignorant in your intelligence." The white sister did not appreciate me. I threatened to sue her. She started shaking. I said, "Amendments are in order." She produced it. What am I saying? As a single father, and a father to my other children, I've taught my children one thing, that if the responsibility that's given to you is to take on a challenge, take it on with both hands, both feet, and get your head into it. That is a truth that I leave with everybody. What have I learned about myself? There's nothing that I'm not capable of doing. And that's the truth about everybody seated under the sound of my voice. When a challenge comes, don't throw it off. When others create problems for you, embrace it because you're learning more about yourself.
Awesome, awesome. I want to say again, thank you for being so open to us again. It's just something that we don't see very often in other parts of the country. And when I moved here, it was one of the first things I saw. So I want to say again, thank you. Thank you for being great fathers. Thank you for being committed. And we appreciate you. All right. Give these men a hand, please.
Thank you, family, for that excellent panel. Thank these fathers for coming, for that brilliance. We're going to transition into our last segment, and that is a fireside chat with Dr. Tommy Curry and Miss Tiffany Kelley. So thank you, brothers, for coming up. Come on up. You ready, Doc?